The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular horror franchises. And today we are talking about Saw 2 from 2005. So this was just a year after the first one. Mm-hmm. They knew they had a hit on their hands and they're in true horror movie franchise fashion. Get the band back together, get something out by Halloween. I don't know if it came out on Halloween actually, but roughly let's hit that year mark and get another one out.
Yeah, they did. Again, I don't know if it's like Halloween exactly, but certainly around there because that was for years following this. That was the thing. Halloween meant another Saw movie.
Right.
And yeah, this was the first one they basically greenlit it during the premiere of the first one.
Exactly.
It was immediate. Unfortunately, James Wan and Leigh Whannell were busy working on Dead Silence, so they were not available. Did you ever see that one?
I like that one, actually.
With Evil Puppet?
Yeah, I've seen it twice, and I'm not super into Evil Puppet movies, but that one I thought was pretty good.
I have not yet checked that out. And frankly, the lack of Evil Puppet in this one made me want to go check that out.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So instead of James Wan, we got Daryl Lynn Bousman, Big Bousman, who had a script for a different movie called The Desperate. But the producers went, hey, I bet this could be Saw.
Yeah, it's so funny to watch the producers' reaction when they talk about this. I looked up one of those behind the scenes things on YouTube, and those get pretty insufferable pretty quickly because it's just platitudes.
It's how great everyone is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No new information whatsoever. But the producer was just over the moon about the script, and he was just like, "This is Saw 2. This is it." And if we bring in James Wan to retrofit it just a little bit, and I'm just like, were you that enthusiastic, or were you just like, all right, how can we squish this into a Saw franchise movie?
Like, how could we just bring this out for some more money? Because they certainly, they had in like a lot of cases in the part 2, they had a bigger budget, but and more time. But let's throw some new people at it. If we can't get James Wan, we'll get Bousman, who was suggested by the cinematographer of the first one and this one, David Armstrong.
Yeah.
And who kind of shepherded the script to the producers.
Right.
So that's kind of cool. And I guess a lot of the same crew turned back up as well.
Sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's always a good sign that it was a decent working environment.
Totally. And it's one of those things where I try not to be too cynical about the idea of just like getting a sequel going right away or trying to take a script and like smashing it into a franchise too much. I mean, this isn't like the latter day Hellraiser movies necessarily, where those were like detective stories plugged in with a puzzle box. But, because it's still the business, so, but they were able to raise up like $4 million for this one. And then the box office was $147 million. So I might have a little bit of the same excitement to get a sequel going if I knew it was going to be like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And people seem to like this one a lot. I think fans really respond to this.
This was one that I thought, I had remembered, I think I really enjoyed this one. And it turns out I used to be very wrong. I used to be extremely wrong.
You used to be an extremely wrong young John.
Yeah, it was terrible. It's not awful. It's just it to me is a step down from the first one in terms of they expanded outwards, but I think it just as a result feels bloated. But there's still some interesting stuff here.
Yeah, a lot of people in this. I didn't pick up on who this director was when this first came out, and he ended up directing part 3, I believe, and then a couple of the other ones. In fact, I think he came back for Spiral as well. But the only reason I recognized this name when I was looking it up a couple of days ago was that he went on to direct something called Repo, the Genetic Opera. And I remember being vaguely excited for that before it came out because the lead singer from Skinny Puppy, Ogre, was going to be in that movie and wear all of his masks and do his weird things. And then we rented it and it was... I didn't love it at all. Maybe I could watch it again and find something to like. But I just remember, this name being part of Repo and not really loving that movie so much. But hey, then again, maybe it's for spooky theater kids. I don't know. It's a musical, not usually something I gravitate towards. So Daryl Lynn Bousman gets the band back together for this one and opens up the film in a very similar fashion to the first movie. It's not so much a reverse bear trap as it is what they call it, a Venus flytrap. So it goes the other way.
Which actually is somewhat more fitting with just sort of the being trapped. Sure. And everything's gonna close in on you.
Yes.
But I like the trap as a concept. It's really cool. It's an Iron Maiden
Iron
sort of
Maiden,
thing that you would shut people into, because it's got spikes on the inside, and then unless the guy solves the puzzle, it'll trap it, gunk his head. But yeah, he's and in typical Jigsaw fashion, he's like, well, you can actually escape from this. Billy the puppet is talking to him on the video, and he's like, you can escape from this. Basically, the key's behind your eye. Yeah, and there was a lot of speculation about who that figure was, because he shows him a video of Jigsaw, the hooded boxing robe Jigsaw, operating on him, and dropping in the idea that this key is behind your eyeball. You're going to have to remove your eyeball to get to the key. And there's some speculation about who that is in the suit, and including some people are like, well, that's probably Dr. Gordon from the first one. Yeah. In fact, the actor playing that role is actually Darren Lynn Bousman, but who like character-wise, I think it's just supposed to be Jigsaw. But yeah, this thing is he's a snitch for the cops, I guess, right? That's his whole thing.
I did enjoy the opening of this, where it gives you just like a little camera POV of looking around a dingy room, and then he angles a mirror right to his face. That was a pretty fun, creative way to open this scene. Yeah, you're expecting the bear trap from the first one, and then it goes into the reverse. So that opening was great.
I had already said that the frenetic camera work of the first one was I was not a fan of.
Strap in, buddy.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting watching this one compared to the first one, because you see a guy that like, what's the line from Mandy, where it's like basically the psychotic drowns in the same waters where the mystic swims. And James Wan is swimming. Yeah. Like this, it seems like it's more natural to him, and it feels like Bousman's like trying to match the style. This was like his first. He was just a music video director at this point. And so it seemed like he was more forced into doing some of this style. And even though, as we talked about in the last episode, some of that style was, we don't have the footage, so we need to just like do some frantic cut-ins and stuff like that. Yes. But it does feel less, it feels a bit more forced in this. It's just not as natural. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of that.
Yeah, early on for a franchise, this is definitely one of those, somebody else comes in and has to match what do you call it? Like a brand book or a playbook or like a Bible, a show Bible, as they call it. Like, you know, this is the way it's filmed. These are typically, to get this look, we use these lenses, etc., and these cuts. But he had to come in and match, and then do a little bit of his own too.
Which is interesting, because I feel like in some of the older stuff, like that's not a thing. Like they didn't necessarily need Friday the 13th 2 to look like one. They had some of the same crew, so it was probably going to, but it wasn't just like, it's got to be like this. So they're really more into branding on this one, I guess.
Right. In fact, that's a lot of the fun of those early Friday movies, is the jumping styles that you get too. But not going that direction with Saw. I liked how this first victim just kind of gives up pretty quickly. Yeah. He realizes he can't cut his own eyeball out, which is a fair assumption to make. And he just falls to his knees, gives up, and his face gets smashed. And I did think to myself, like, that might be a pretty accurate representation of how I would handle these things. If I knew that I only had 30 seconds left and I wasn't about to cut my eye out, I would probably panic as well. However, I might just give in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain part of me, I mean, crap, I'll kill myself before I get up and go to the fridge for another drink or something. Like I don't want to do that. That's too tough. Totally. But I do, like, there is a certain amount of like, well, I could be in a whole lot of pain, or this could probably end pretty quick. Yes. Maybe I'll go with that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But it was definitely I was already thinking about how unfair this was. It's like, well, how come I don't get to stab a guy to get a key? How come I got to stab my own eye? What's that?
At least give me a choice.
That's the way Jigsaw works, I guess. Yeah.
We get our, we cut to the next sequence where we get our grizzled cop hero for the movie, Eric Matthews, played by Donnie Wahlberg of New Kids on the Block fame.
Yeah, the better Wahlberg.
Yeah. He's bailing out his son, and his son Daniel gives him nothing but lip, and they just bicker back and forth for a while about having to go home and then go to the mom's house.
I just think I should go back to mom's early. What did you say? What, can you not hear me?
No, I can't hear you. Say it again.
I think I should go back to mom's.
Well, then go!
Whoever did the wardrobe, I like, because it looks like he is wearing his dad's suit.
Yes.
Like, it's just this crumpled up suit that doesn't fit, because he's just like, whatever, this is what I got to wear. Like, he does not care.
Nice.
And that was like honestly, the first thing I noticed, just how shitty that suit looked. But it's purposeful. It's not it's not a bad design choice or anything. It's like, yeah, this guy just can't be bothered.
Exactly. He is called to the crime scene of the previous Jigsaw puzzle. in the scene after this with his partner named Carrie, and that's Diz from Starship Troopers. I can't remember, was she in the first movie or not?
Yeah.
I've already
She
forgotten
was, yeah.
that.
Dina Meyer
Okay.
had a bit role when the dude setting on fire scene.
Okay.
So she's walking Detective Tapp through this. So she's back.
Got it. Okay.
And we didn't shout her out last time, but I love in this bit. This is a clever idea, but it doesn't work. Where he's at home getting the call. No, Donnie Wahlberg's at home and he gets the call. He's like, I'll be right there. And he just like walks out of his apartment and it's like the set is right there. The crime scene's right there. So it's supposed to just be like a neat way but it just looks like he was living in the warehouse.
Yeah.
That made me laugh a lot.
That is one of those artsy edits or artsy effects that they want to have, but they didn't give it any sort of flair to make it. Yeah, I was a little confused by that as well.
Yeah, there just wasn't like if you did because there's someone like walking in front.
Yes,
they try to like kind of cover it up with that, but it does just look like he's living right where the murder
in
happened.
The next thing.
Yeah, it's like wake him up. He can't sleep at the crime scene.
He's got to go home. on the wall is painted "Look closer, Detective Matthews," and that just hangs with him for a while, to the point where his partner Carrie, who I'm probably just going to end up calling Diz for the rest of the episode, but she's in the office and insists that she should be able to help them when they get called to Wilson Steele. At first, I thought this was another flashback, like in the first movie. I got a little confused here in this big stretch too.
Well, it seemed like because they have a back and forth at the crime scene. Which, by the way, I'm very excited. I don't know when it's going to happen. How many movies we need to get into this before it's revealed that all these crimes are happening in the Matrix?
Yes.
Because all this green look of all the torture stuff is very much like you expect Keanu Reeves to just show up. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, yeah, that could be like the Matrix run by Cenobites or something like that.
Sure.
You know, like
Yes.
weird BDSM robots.
Yep. AI.
But they have a conversation about like, yeah, this wackadoo guy calling him out by name. And it's like he goes home later and is laying in bed and kind of remembers, oh yeah, the thing on the side of the helmet said the steel company.
Yeah.
You should go check that out. It took you like 12 hours to figure that out. Why didn't you just be like, hey, this weird head thing, maybe someone made a special order or something?
Yes. Yeah.
No, it's like, don't worry about it. It's gross. It's got blood on it. Let's just don't touch it.
Yeah. This is for the lab geeks.
But he figures out, oh my gosh, this is this warehouse thing might be related. So they just send a SWAT team. And that reminded me of on the special features for the Cell with Jennifer Lopez. All the deleted scenes are just like stuff that makes the plot make sense.
Oh,
because
good.
in the movie, there's just a scene where all of a sudden the SWAT team is just raiding Vincent D'Onofrio's apartment. And it felt like that, where I'm like, we just skipped a bunch of steps. I mean, whatever. We're getting where we need to go. I get you kind of waved your hand at detective work, but it was a little just like, wait, oh, okay. I guess that's happening.
Don't maybe go investigate it first. Just go right to the SWAT guys.
Yeah, there's no doubt that he's there because, I mean, it's very sort of like Batman logic of just like, well, it's from the steel mill. Well, he must be at the steel mill.
Exactly. Yeah. SWAT team busts into the steel mill. And of course, it's immediately, you recognize it. It's another jigsaw warehouse. And they quickly find tripwires, and a few SWAT guys get their legs like blown out from underneath them and then like electrocuted by multiple traps. Now, based on the previous movie and, yet another John Jigsaw speech that we'll get later, he doesn't kill. You think those guys are okay? No. They
made the choice to storm the warehouse, go into a cage staircase to a guy they know builds traps, and just went, yeah, let's go.
Fair enough. You just destroyed me with logic on YouTube.
Yeah, his reasonings for stuff really start to fall apart in this movie, but
quickly
in an interesting way. I think in an interesting way that we can talk about as we get into it. But yeah, these cops are going up to get him. They see the Billy puppet. It like rolls up, like the one scene it's in, basically.
Still cute. Sorry, Becky.
Still adorable.
Still cute.
Still adorbs. It took me a few rewinds to actually figure out what happened, because it seems like he steps on the stair, the tripwire goes off, the stair lowers, and then something comes out from the stair beneath and just like cracks his shins.
Exactly.
Which is brutal.
That's pretty rough.
So it's like, he didn't kill that guy, but then the walls are electrified and people touch them and they seem like they're dead, but I don't know.
I don't think we even really go back to them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because some of the SWAT guys are still alive, or at least that one is. But yeah, I think we're just going to say they're injured because they're not, I don't know.
Whatever. They're not completely dispatched by like traps. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like in a cartoon where they throw someone off a roof, but they land in water, so they're fine.
Sure. So
or it's like,
fine.
I'm sure technically they're not dead or whatever.
Totally. Yeah. We see Tobin Bell reprising his role as John behind the desk, and he's hooked up to some medical equipment. He's worse for wear. If we remember, he has been diagnosed with a cancer, and that's why he's doing all this great work. Mm-hmm. He basically gets Donnie Wahlberg to just sit and talk with him as his whole goal. He explains, like, your son is with some people. Donnie tries to call his son's cell phone, doesn't pick up, of course. And Tobin Bell basically just says, like, if you just sit here and talk with me, we'll talk through this.
And yeah, I do like the stupid little touch of Donnie Wahlberg trying to call his son, and then the voice, it goes to voicemail, and it's Jigsaw's voice.
You've reached Daniel's phone. He's not in right now.
Yes, that cracked me up.
Yeah.
What foresight.
It was just like, yeah, what a weird thing to do, but that's great.
Mm-hmm. He's thorough.
And I really like, so obviously at the end of the first one, everyone's like, okay, well, so who's Jigsaw then? Because really that's the last minute reveal, which you could argue is a cheat. But since all his puzzles seem to be that way, it works with the movie. Sure. That turns out it was the dead guy the whole time. But I still like it. And then, so yeah, you have this character like, all right, well, I want to know more about him. So really focusing on him this time, I think, was a good choice. And I really like, Tobin Bell is probably my favorite part of this whole thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I like his performance because he's so sleepy almost. He's not Hannibal Lecter stunting on people with, I'm so smart, or mustache twirly, whatever like that. But even his coldness doesn't feel that kind of maniacal coldness. It's just this sort of tired, like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. This is, I've got this power over you. And he does kind of toy with Donnie Wahlberg a bit, but it is like, I think what is in The Exorcist, they call it the vulgar display of power.
Yes, exactly.
Like I'm bored that I have this much power. Like, this is nothing to me. I always kind of enjoy that.
I've already thought this through 5 steps in front of you, like Batman. Yeah. And I'm going to just sit here and maybe not even enjoy it. That's a good question. Do you think Jigsaw takes enjoyment from this? He doesn't seem to.
He doesn't. That's the thing. And it raises some questions about his whole goal and trying to help people. Mm-hmm. Because like the only times he like laughs is when he talks about Donnie Wahlberg's kid like coughing up blood.
Oh, sure.
Or, dying from the nerve agent.
Before the gas creeping into his nervous system begins to break down his body tissue, and he begins to bleed from every orifice he has.
Or like, I think in one of the tapes, he makes some little joke and kind of chuckles at himself about like pain or something like that. So I think he tells himself that he doesn't take enjoyment out of this, and the enjoyment he gets out is showing people their lives are worth living. Yeah. But I think he's just a creep who likes to hurt people.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe he doesn't visibly show enjoyment for it. He's not, as you're saying, like cackling and such. We zoom in on a TV monitor and into the scene where we've got, 7-8 people milling around in a room and a body on the floor, just like the previous film. And my first thought was, as soon as seeing all these people, where I'm just like, oh, this is going to be one of those movies where people scream at each other a whole bunch because it's going to be a high stress environment. And that rewarded me all throughout this film.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought of that pretty early on as well. I'm like, I bet Jim hates this because there's yelling.
It's just a lot of yelling.
There's 7 people total. There's Daniel. And then there's Xavier, Jonas, Laura, Addison, Gus, and Obi that we're eventually all introduced to. Oh, crap. I had another point I was going to make. Then I got excited to talk about you hating yelling. Oh, yeah. And I do like this starts the movie on 2 separate tracks. So we have the people in the house track, and then we have like the investigation track.
Yes.
And I do like that they bothered to like visually separate them. The house is so much more like yellowy and gross. The film looks that way, like the filters, whatever they're using. And the other stuff, although part of it is green, it's a little bit cleaner where Jigsaw is. Like, he's usually in like white light, but the stuff around him is a little bit more like green and stuff like that. But I thought that was kind of a neat way to help move, differentiate the 2 sides of this.
Certainly.
Yeah. And they all start to wake up, figure out what's going on. They're in a house. They also, but we did leave out someone, because they're like figuring out who's who, what's going on. A new person wakes up.
Oh, yes.
Starts screaming. They're wearing scrubs. Looks like, and they're immediately like freaking out, like, oh no, and that is Amanda from the first movie.
Yes,
Shawnee Smith back again. I like that she's supposed to be kind of more like disheveled and like kind of punk hair or something.
Yes.
But it just looks like soccer mom hair now.
Exactly. Yeah.
But she starts freaking out. And so they're like, oh, well, she was trapped as well. But then she immediately starts like digging out bricks to find a micro cassette recorder.
Yes.
So right away, I'm like, well, why did she know that was there? And sure enough, there's a cassette recorder in there, and it's Jigsaw doing his whole speech again.
Right now, you are breathing in a deadly nerve agent. You've been breathing it since you arrived here. Those of you familiar with the Tokyo subway attacks will know its devastating effects on the human body.
3 hours, the door will unlock, but in 2 hours, you'll be dead. There's antidotes hidden around. You got to find them.
They immediately find a key and a note that says, do not use the key on this door. And of course, somebody goes and uses it and promptly gets shot in the face. That absolutely made me laugh. I thought that was like, oh, we're going to open up a little wackier this time. I thought it might take like more like, because it's fun when a guy gets shot in the face. No, I mean, like, it was like a setup and punchline, Yeah. I thought they might be going a little bit wackier. No dice. That was the funniest one.
Yeah. And it's like, because it's very just simple and quick as well, which we're not used to. Going back to the first scene, I feel like there's a lot more gore this time. There's a lot less super fast motion to cover up, the guy getting cut by razor wires. It's like, no, we're going to show you him getting cut by razor wires.
Yeah.
And it turns out I like the first way a little bit better.
A little bit better.
But yeah, this is very quick. And I know some people are like, well, so the one guy had to unlock it while the other guy looked through the keyhole. Yeah. We found out, the door eventually opens anyway once the time lock is done. But it also, whether or not someone was standing there or not, I think it would have shown you, don't use this. It didn't work. And then you shot something. So be careful.
Yes.
But he actually caught someone in the trap. So it seems like some traps are specific for certain people.
Yes.
Because he has like the little names, stuff like that. But then he just didn't get a chance to use those other ones. So he wasted a whole bunch of time with that.
Yeah, those are left over. He's not going to let them go to waste.
They might show up in other ones. Yeah.
Yes.
In like Saw 4. It's like, okay, could you commit the same crime as this one person? So
you just got to make it all work with me here, please.
I've spent so long on this.
So everyone starts looking for different clues and items around the room. And for a second there, it does start looking like, a video game room to collect items in, because somebody gets a baseball bat with some nails in it. Another person gets a flashlight. And I was like, oh, everybody's going to get their item. But I do think it does cut off right there.
Pretty much. Yeah. Well, I was also starting to lose it because we talked about last time it being, essentially like an escape room. And I'm thinking about how like escape rooms now are like this corporate retreat. Yes. But this is a horror movie. And I know there's the escape room horror movies, but it got me thinking about having like, a corporate team building exercise at a haunted house.
Yes.
And just like how goofy that whole concept must seem now. You're like, these guys are at an escape room to it, like getting killed. Okay, that's dumb.
Yeah. Let's see how cutthroat you are, Johnson. What you'll do to climb the ladder.
Yeah. If you want to make vice president, you will crawl through some needles. Yeah.
Yes. The cannon fodder people just sort of start bickering around them and amongst themselves, and they find out they can't smash their way through a door. They kind of go back in and they find a secret door with stairs leading down here.
The two things I love about this is one guy, there's a door that says exit on it. And this one guy, this Xavier, the tough guy played by Frankie G, tries to bust down the door only to reveal another thicker wall or a door. So this tells you, based on Wishmaster 4, this takes place in Canada.
There you go. Two doors.
Two doors.
One door here,
Jigsaw,
one door there.
Confirmed Canadian. Yeah. No, like that much space in between, like just a tiny amount. Big time Canada.
Big time Canada style.
Start this weird xenophobic thing against Canadians and their goofy ass doors.
Just the doors. Just the doors.
Just the doors. They're lovely people otherwise. Just keep your doors there and we'll have our doors here.
Exactly.
Okay? You're in this country. Use our doors. Okay.
Yes. Don't bring your doors with you when you come to my house.
Oh, what? Oh, so you got some anchor doors now. Okay.
Right.
I see the scheme. I've watched Fox News.
I'll trade you our doors for your healthcare system.
I would absolutely. I would have a dumb second door in order to
exactly if I got
healthcare,
Canadian healthcare.
But I like because there's one guy, the sort of peacemaker Jonas, played by Glenn Plummer, a character actor I like a lot. He was in this. I think he was the guy driving the car in Speed that hits the water barrels.
I just rewatched that movie recently. Yeah, that guy's great. I didn't realize that was him. He had a cool name in Speed too. I can't remember what it was.
The reason I recognized him in that is because he's in a movie called South Central. But he's the main character in that. It's like a guy who gets out of jail and is trying to fix his life, and he was really, really good in that. And so super excited to see him here. And he's this peacemaker, Jonas, and he's trying to solve the puzzle. The clues from Jigsaw were like,
You all possess the combination to the safe. Thank God. The numbers are in the back of your mind. The clue to their order can be found over the rainbow. Once you realize what you all have in common, you will gain a better understanding of why you're here. X marks the spot for that clue.
And so Jonas is trying to figure this out. No, there's the secret. We got to know each other. And then one of them just opens a door. I was like, hey, it's this way. Yeah. And I like that little bit. It's just like, I don't care. I don't care why we're all here. Let's get out of here. And then we can figure that out.
So she finds the door. They go downstairs and they find another body stabbed to its chest as an envelope that says Obi. There's a tape inside with Jigsaw on it, basically saying there are a couple of antidotes in this room in the oven. One is for you because you helped me kidnap everybody. And then you can decide who gets the other one. I do like this pitting enemies against each other, at least, because more yelling.
More yelling, but I also like, you're in trouble because you kidnap people. Yeah. I also kidnap people, but when I do it, it's cool. So you need to be punished. What? Right. Why do you not? Why do you get off scot-free on that? Whatever. And then just the fact that it's like, okay, these antidotes are at the back of an oven, and everyone is going, well, surely there's not two traps. Yeah. Like there's just part of my problem with these people is that you've established that Jigsaw is a thing that people know. They have they have a whole conversation about it. There's like one guy that doesn't know, but everyone was like, oh, it's Jigsaw. Haven't you watched the news, other stuff? So people know what this guy's apparently up to. They watched a dude get blown away because he fell for a trap. Why are they just like, why don't you just climb into that oven? Don't worry about it. Let's not check it. Let's not work together on this. Just get in there.
It's the ticking time clock. We got to go.
We don't have time to think. And it's something that drives me nuts throughout it. Cause I know, it's a regular thing in horror movies to have people to make stupid decisions, but some of these are just so, if you had thought for 2 seconds and cause it's a trap. You asked like the hand thing later. I was losing my mind.
Oh, I was going to say.
But this one in particular was real dumb, and it's also, so Obi gets in there and pulls one down. He's like, well, that's for me. And then you guys can fight over this one. And as he pulls down the second one, then the door closes. So to win, he needed to be selfish. Like, how did that? I don't understand the punishment there. Yeah. Because Jigsaw also tells him, if you're in hell, sometimes only the devil can get you out. But the door closes. It starts on fire. Oh my God, he's freaking out. Everyone outside is freaking out, trying to get him out. There's a valve with the devil next to it, like pointing at it. And I think the idea was if you spun it, you'd get burned a bit, but you would turn off the flames. But he doesn't even go for it. I don't think.
I was pretty confused.
I couldn't tell. This was very kind of confusing put together. Because he looks at it and he's being set on fire, but he's like, well, I don't want to be on more fire. So I'll just stay back here in the oven. And then they try to get it Xavier and Jonas try to get him out. They try to open one side, but it's hot. So they go around to the other side and that's hot too. It was just like the surprise that two sides of the steel oven were hot was very funny.
Yes. I
was like, these people are screwed.
At this point, it wasn't annoying screaming to me, but the amount of pain that he's going through and yelling and screaming about inside an oven and all the other people running around trying to scream that did give me that first kind of drop of despair that these movies will deliver. Cause I was like, oh, they're really lingering on the suffering in this. And I'm not saying that in a critical or bad way, because that's obviously the point of these movies. I'm just noticing my own personal reaction to that. As I was watching, I was like, I'm going to turn the volume down on this one. Hope nobody's listening upstairs. And, this is a rough.
For the first one that we're really suffering through, it's kind of a smart move to have it be as simple as guy burns alive, because we've all burned ourselves before. We know how much that sucks. And you get people's horrified faces watching this and trying to get out, crying and screaming. He's crying and screaming. He finally shoves himself out of the window of the oven and just burns up right there. And then Xavier is pissed at him because he didn't grab the antidote.
I will give the movie credit for that, because at that point, because they made it worse by him bursting out of the glass and getting halfway out and then realizing he couldn't make it any further out. And then they couldn't go in to get the antidote. I always call it anecdotes. The antidotes.
I need closure for this anecdote.
They successfully took that trap up a level for despairing for that moment. And, good on them for that.
But I also wonder if like Jigsaw was, 8 steps ahead. Is like, I know this guy's going to be a dumbass and try to hop through the window.
Yeah, that's true.
I've watched him at home hopping through different windows. He loves it. So
totally.
This will be the perfect trap.
He can't resist. So we're during this bit, we are cutting back and forth a little bit with Donnie Wahlberg and John Jigsaw. And Jigsaw just says like, I just want to chat with Donnie, and everybody else has to leave the room. He starts kind of reminding Donnie Wahlberg of the last time he saw his son.
Well, then go!
Jigsaw starts to launch in on his, the knowledge of death changes everything. And we get flashbacks to him getting the cancer diagnosis. I'm not going to say that this part struck me as emotionally like resonant necessarily, but as a dude approaching mid-40s, anytime they show like a hospital and like some sort of like, you do start to feel a little bit more like, well, what's going to happen when I go into the doctor this time? And I'm not saying that I'm connecting
mortality
with Jigsaw, but like maybe it's just like I can't help but watch a lot of these movies through the age that I'm at now and feeling a little bit more fragile sometimes. I was like, okay, that coupled with Tobin Bell's performance, I enjoyed this a little bit. Mm-hmm. It worked.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely what they're setting out to do, because like that, and there's a moment later when he gets his fingers broken, we're like, you see how vulnerable and frail this guy really is.
Yes,
and. For all his posturing or whatever, like he's still this sad, scared guy, even though like he claims otherwise.
Me too.
Because he gives us this whole talk about and I guess when early on in the production, in an interview, Donnie Wahlberg said that both he and Tobin Bell like were like, oh, okay, this part of it isn't really working. Do you mind if we just like hang out and talk and see if we can kind of improv something together? So they would like. At the end of shooting days, they would sit around and talk and like try to like smooth out what they thought were some of the rough edges of this bit to make it a little bit more understandable. And I do like their interplay. And I like that Donnie Wahlberg also in an interview was like, look, it's not Oscar winning acting, but I thought we did, we elevated as much as we could. And I always just like that kind of realistic thing in it. So the same way that like there's been a big story lately with that what's her face, Jenna Ortega that plays Wednesday, and how like she in an interview was like, I didn't want to play this part at first. I turned it down a bunch. And then I've had to be kind of a pill on set because I think some of the scripts are really bad, but so we're working it out and getting through. But just, I like that kind of like showing the it's not like, oh, I've always wanted to play this role or whatever. It's like, this is a job and I'm going to do the best job I can at this. And I'm not trying to like denigrate the people, in Donnie Wahlberg's case, like I'm not trying to denigrate the writers of this, whatever. We felt we could do more with it. And I don't know. I just like that kind of realistic approach to the whole thing.
Yeah. And that's the nature of collaborative art. Like when you get excited what somebody else will bring to what you've done. I'm willing to bet that the writers, unless they had their head up their own ass too much for a Saw movie, they were probably like, hopefully just like, please go. Like,
sounds great.
Bring something to this. But yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of this interplay was one of the better parts of the movie.
Yeah, I do like that a lot. But between the two of them, I think it works really well. And again, I mean, Tobin Bell is really good. And I think they lucked out on having, because he didn't necessarily have to come back. He was not under contract to do anything like that. But he was like, can I do something other than lay on the floor? Yeah, sure. Sounds great. But like, he gives this, he starts talking about like this cancer thing and then how he tried to kill himself.
Yeah.
And he said, he's talking about like trying to drive his car off a cliff. And he says,
my body had not been strong enough to repel cancer cells. Yet I had lived through a plunge off a cliff. But to my amazement, I was alive. And I was determined to spend the rest of my days testing the fabric of human nature.
That's kind of a leap there. That you're like, well, I survived. And so my next thought was like, you know what I should do is put other people through this.
Exactly.
I mean, you could see how he follows that, like that it makes sense to him, but it doesn't really, because if it's about appreciating your life, this is how you've been appreciating your life by doing this to other people and setting up weird little rules for people to follow. And if they don't, then they get punished. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But people
get their kicks in different ways.
Yeah, really, as we'll find out later, like really giving the game away to the cop, but he's not picking up on it at all.
Yeah.
He's too busy being pissed, and Donnie Wahlberg.
So this is how he gets fulfillment out of his life. By setting up these traps every day, once a day, he gives himself a present, as Cooper tells people to do. And these traps are all his own personal presents that he is giving out to himself.
Yeah, his present is Carrie Elwes's foot. That's his gift for himself today.
That's what I've always wanted. Back at the house, the son, Daniel, talks to a woman, Amanda. she was a drug addict. She passed the test, but then she ended up trying to slit her own wrists afterwards. They then go to another door that is not locked, but it is stuck. And of course, they argue a whole bunch more. And the tough guy, Xavier, starts coughing up blood. And he says, if it's stuck, it's a trap. And they force the door open to a brightly lit room. I like how brightly lit this place was.
Yeah.
With another countdown clock reading 4 minutes and a tape for Xavier.
Yeah. People have already been like coughing up blood. The younger woman, Laura, has coughed up blood. And where we're starting to figure out that all these people pretty much have been in jail.
Yes.
Shawnee Smith, when talking to Daniel, mentions that she started her heroin addiction when she was in jail.
What were you arrested for?
Possession.
But I thought you said that.
Maybe you should talk to the cop who arrested me.
Daniel wisely leaves out, is about to mention that his dad's a cop, and then wisely says, well, I don't want to bring the heat. But we find out Xavier's been in jail. Jonas always talk about how he's in jail. He was in jail, and then Laura's like, yeah, I was in jail too. Oh my God, there might be something to that. Yeah, Xavier listens to the tape, and it's Jigsaw again, being like, hey, you were a drug dealer. You know, I'm going to force you to do this thing that you forced your customers to do.
Yeah.
He didn't force his customers to take drugs. That's not how a drug dealer works. It's
exactly.
You better take these drugs. No, I'm addicted, but I don't want these drugs. No, thank you.
What am I going to do with all these drugs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My prices are so low, you think I've gone insane. But yeah, I thought that was like, it was just weird phrasing. But it's very fitting that he's a drug pusher, because rather than hop into this pit of needles, this pit of syringes to look around and find a key, he pushes Amanda in there. And there's part of me that wonders, because I mean, this is very much, there was a strain of movies. I can't say it necessarily started with this, but I feel like, you know, definitely the Joker in 2006, and then in Skyfall, and then in the Avengers movie, you had all these, there was an era where all the villains were always like 9 steps ahead. It's a Star Trek Into Darkness. These ridiculous convoluted plans that would always, and this movie definitely, and this series definitely has that, where it's like, aha, it turns out. Oh yeah. I knew you were going to do that.
I want to be caught.
Yeah. That if Jigsaw knew that he was going to throw Amanda in there, and this was actually Amanda's test.
Sure.
Because it is having to go out behind the shed and smoke a full pack of cigarettes. Like, here's all the syringes.
Here's 120,000 syringes. Literally.
And I guess to do that effect, they're syringes, but the needles were removed and replaced with fiber optic little pieces of wire. So they're like bendy or whatever. And then she had fake stuff sticking in her. But that was also, again, another like, this is a thing that we've all experienced. But what if you crank it up to 11? Like, no one likes getting shots. What if you got all the shots at once?
Yeah, they completely succeeded with what they were going for on this one. A pit of needles. It did make me squirm. This was actually pretty tough to watch, and bravo, they succeeded on this. Yeah. The fun thing, I did read a little bit about how they had 4 people working for 4 days to replace those syringe tips. So if you ever wanted a job in the movies, that's one of the jobs on a movie set that you can get. I'm sure it's with the art department or the special effects department, but you will switch out syringe tips for 12 hours a day for 4 days.
Because the glamorous life of production. But it was neat. It was very effective and very uncomfortable. Ugh. She does get the key, but doesn't unlock the door in time.
That was fun.
So just missed it. Again, like, work together? Nope. We're all like afraid of Xavier, so we're just going to let him lead, but also follow him wherever he goes instead of being like, this guy's just bum rushing everything and it's not working out. Maybe we should go to our own thing. There's a bunch more of us, and they do split off a bit, but there is a lot of like, he's just alpha dogs the whole thing.
Sure. There was that funny moment where somebody was like, what, are you going to jump into that pit of needles and look for the key with her? Like, are you going to help her?
Yeah.
It's like, no, right. Understandable.
And then at this point, though, while I was sort of commiserating about that, the Laura is like, wait a minute, X marks the spot. This cracked picture frame that has an X, the glass is broken in an X. So X marks the spot, and they lift it up, and it's a photo of Daniel and his father, Detective Eric Matthews, played by Donnie Wahlberg. And it says father and son written on the back. So, oh my God, they all know him because he put them away, and we find out that he's a corrupt cop who's been planting evidence, and that's why they're all there. So, okay. But like, it's strange because it's you have people like Amanda, who is apparently because she got arrested, she was in jail and she turned to heroin. But then you have people like Xavier, who's a drug dealer. And you have people like, I don't know what Addison's whole deal is. Some of these characters just don't need to be there and they don't really offer a lot other than like, well, we need to do that. We want to do this trap. So let's have an extra person. But so, or Obi's a giant piece of shit, but I guess he's there separately from being, believe me, I am not condoning the Orson Welles touch of evil planting evidence thing. Sure. But there's some are more innocent than others. So why, I don't know.
Justice is justice, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess.
Black and white.
If you're Jigsaw, yes, that's true.
Back in the Johnny Wahlberg Jigsaw part of the movie, this is where Jigsaw sort of like goes over and just talks to him about just being like, you shot an unarmed suspect, you planted evidence, all that kind of stuff. That's where it reveals in the other room that there's a file folder and that all of the people that are in the house are people that he's put away, which we find out on the other end from their point of view. So it's all starting to come together. Donnie realizes all these people are there. And of course, that his son is in there with them.
So he's even more afraid. And Jigsaw keeps being like, how come? And this was, again, sort of drove me nuts about his reasoning where he's like, you remember how you told your son to kiss off, basically? And now that he's about to die, you love him?
Yeah.
Huh? It's like that is a very like engineer's point of view of like, it's one way or this way. And that's it.
Or that's like a bad Instagram meme or something. You know, it's just like something, a complicated idea reduced down to this, but that's the primary motivation of our villain.
Yeah. It's like, because he's my son. Have you ever had kids? And we'll find out later. No, but
or cared about anybody ever.
Yeah, but it's like people argue. It's fine. You don't need to put them into a literal trap house to have them do that. Like, But meanwhile, back at the trap house, Xavier figures out that the guy Gus, the guy that was shot by the gun, that there's a number on the back of his neck. This is one time repeatedly, and they do this a bit in the first one. And again, because they didn't have the footage or they didn't have the coverage. Probably not the only reason, but that's an excuse I'll accept. Whereas this one, like, there's so many flashbacks to being like, yeah, I've been watching the movie. Thank you. I've been, it drives me nuts when it's like the movie thinks I'm that stupid where I'm like, remember 5 minutes ago? Like, yes, I do. Yeah. I'm still here. He finds out that, there's a number on the back of his neck and it's like, oh yeah, there's in the back of your mind and it's over the rainbow. So he's like, all right, well, I got to start collecting the numbers. And then Jonas tries to talk to him and like calming down and working together. And Xavier just kills him to get the number on the back of his neck instead of, asking. And that I think that the like what a miscommunication that we enjoyed in the first one is done to death in this, where it's like so much of this is so easily solvable. And it's very frustrating to watch. I'm more frustrated watching that than I am watching these people suffer and die. Yes. It's more like just talk to each other. Like this is so solvable. Right. And it's just maddening.
That kind of thing really, really bugs me in a lot of different movies. And with this one, when they were fighting, I wrote in my notes, like, am I missing something? Like, why can't he just ask what the number is? But then it did dawn on me later in the movie when more people die to get these numbers. I guess it's just there was only one antidote that could be grabbed from the safe. So I guess Xavier was just like, well, I have to kill everybody to get their numbers or find out their numbers anyway, just because I want the one. So I guess there's a little bit of a reason for it. Yeah. But I was equally frustrated at that moment because I didn't understand that idea until later.
No, and that's fair because in my head I'm like, well, that's how they get out, not that's how they unlock the safe.
Sure.
So fair point because it was driving me nuts. Yeah. But it makes sense, that he would be sole focused even though there's other antidotes around. Yeah, because he blew his chance on his test, and then we also while he's figuring this out, Laura dies, just dies from the toxic stuff. Yep. Which, if you noticed this whole time, people are coughing. You know who's not coughing? Amanda.
Amanda's not coughing.
Yeah, no. So she's not experiencing the same poison that they are, apparently.
I guess that is a good thing for Lauren to die there because it does kind of up it a little bit, just being like, oh, someone's actually already died from the thing that's being our motivational factor right here. So something like that, I think, is effective. Yeah, and she's been a useless character up to this point. Like, she found that door, but anyone else could have done it. Like, she's just there. So at this point, Addison, who's also a character who's basically just been there, wanders off on her own and finds a glass box with an antidote inside. And oh, geez,
what is the dumbest trap I mean, it's like clearly it's an effective trap, but it's one of those. It's just think about it for 2 seconds, and it's again like you've seen these traps. You've seen other people die now because of this stuff. Just think about it, because it's basically like a almost like a finger trap thing, where it's like there's a glass box, there's 2 holes in the bottom, and she puts her arm up. And as you can see, there's like glass, there's sharp metal aperture that she puts her hand through. And then you can tell she can't be able to pull her hand back out. Tries to get the antidote, or just whizzes it immediately, just drops
that cracks me up, actually.
Yeah.
Just pulls it from the opposite way.
Yeah. She's like, oh, well, it kind of hurts to pull my arm back. You know what I'll do? I'll put my hand through the other hole to get it.
Yes.
It's also got the same thing. And the first thing I thought of was that Simpsons joke where Homer's in the tar pit.
First, I'll just reach in and pull my legs out. Now I'll pull my arms out with my face.
That was so stupid. And she's trapped, and Xavier shows up and is like, I just need the number off the back of your neck. Goodbye.
Yep.
Yeah, it was, that trap was like, you could have just, that was way too much for this person. You could have killed this person so easily. You didn't need to do much. They were dumb as hell.
Yeah. This trap, it did frustrate me until it was fully going. And then I just thought to myself, like, oh God, not only is her arms getting slashed up, but she has to stand in that position for a long, long time with her arms over her head. And I was like, I don't know, again, my body ain't doing as well as it used to. So like I was just like standing in any sort of uncomfortable position for more than a few seconds kind of sucks. So
no thanks.
That was what I was more worried about.
But so that antidote's gone, and so is Addison. This is when things really ramp up, and it kind of occurred to me, oh, I guess we're reaching the climax, because this movie doesn't really have like an act structure or anything like that. It just kind of lumbers along until it's done. Because Xavier is just in full on like, just give me the numbers mode. Like it starts chasing after Addison, and Daniel have kind of teamed up, and he's chasing them around trying to get the numbers. But again, like ask, and then he's taken care of. He's not going to try to kill you now. And then there's other antidotes around, apparently. Yeah. We don't know how many though. So again, like it's fine. But they end up like, Amanda finds a trapdoor. They go on the trapdoor. He's chasing around through the bowels of this place. And then they end up in the bathroom from the first one. I love that there's basically like the mummified remains of Adam and Zepp. Yes. And then just gross Carrie Elwes's foot. Yes. Still in the shackle.
Well, then I thought to myself, like, so he never went back and got Adam, so Adam, like, he didn't bother to go back. So, but obviously I'm just like, well, what happened to Carrie Elwes too? And I know the series does a whole lot of folding in upon itself. So I'm imagining we'll find that out next, but that was a fun reveal.
At this point, given Jigsaw's history with how he does this stuff, like he could have bled out. Sure. For all we know, because Jigsaw's whole thing is like, look, I'll save you in this way that you'll die almost immediately afterwards, but you got out, and that's what counts with some of these traps anyway. But I just like how he didn't bother to clean up at all. It's all just still the bodies are still down there. Yeah, disgusting. But I like that reveal. I was a huge fan of that. And then at this point, Matthews, Donnie Wahlberg has just had it with Jigsaw's. He can no longer sanction Jigsaw's buffoonery.
Exactly.
And Jigsaw's kind of taunting him, and he's tired of this cat and mouse game. And so Eric Matthews, in classic Eric Matthews form, beats the tar out of him. They're like, we're done waiting for this. Let's beat him up. John says, game over. I'll take you to the house. Yes. So they drive to the house. It's the last house on the left.
Yeah, did notice that. And they also shot this in the same way that they did the car chase from part one.
Yes.
In or at least a very similar manner, and I got a kick out of that. Well done, guys.
So thank you, Big Boss Man, for sticking true to the dumbest car thing ever. Yes. You had the money to go outside this time, but don't. I like
it. Style, man. We're sticking with it.
Yeah. But so they get there. He leaves the bloody Jigsaw in the car. They send the SWAT team to. Was the idea that the SWAT team was following him, or was going to a different location?
I think it was following after him. Yeah,
because they get to the house, and like, okay, they're seeing the dead people or whatever, and then Donnie Wahlberg's wandering around and is like, I'm going here, I'm going there, and Diz Carrie is like, I'm not seeing you on the monitor, man. I'm not seeing you on the monitor. The SWAT team enters this one room. where there's something covered by some drapes, by fancy cloak,
Totally.
and they pull it off, and it's a bunch of VCRs.
I saw that.
And and so it's just they've been watching an old footage. This has already happened. This had to have just blown Chris Nolan's tiny little mind when he saw this movie. It was like, you what? You mean there's time it can happen in two different things at once? That's how Christopher Nolan sounds.
That's your Nolan.
That's my Nolan, yeah. So you find out it's a very sort of Silence of the Lambs reveal where like you think they're going to the same place and they're not.
Yeah, it's immediately what I thought of was Silence of the Lambs. Yeah,
it's not a different location, but a different time. And so Eric Matthews is down in the bowels and gets to the bathroom, and there's a pig face person in there, and it's Amanda. Mm-hmm. She's been in on it this whole time, and so you get this flashback, and this is kind of frustrating because it's like, who is this? Like, what point of view is happening right now? Because it seems like it's supposed to be like a flashback for like Donnie Wahlberg realizing this stuff. Mm-hmm. But then there's scenes in there of her like, so then she takes Daniel back to Jigsaw after this was done. I mean, like, exactly. I get it now, buddy.
Well, that's like the writing with death joke. I enjoy Amanda's flashbacks. It's like when a character
exactly
is gaining knowledge from their flashback from another character's point of view. Yeah, I enjoy Abby's flashbacks.
Right, exactly. But then so it's she's basically, she did escape. She solved it. Got her and Daniel some antidote. Took him back to Jigsaw. And Jigsaw's like, okay, cool. She's like, yeah, you threw me in jail. Now I'm trapping you in here. Mm-hmm. Back at the Jigsaw's place where the investigation is happening, timer goes off and the safe opens, revealing Daniel's inside, like with an oxygen mask or something like that. So his son has been safe the whole time, as he told him at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Your son is safe, and so he's in. Ha.
I like a good pun.
So he's in there, and she traps Donnie Wahlberg as Jigsaw's outside in the car, kind of smiling, and you get that same that music sting that we'll hear throughout that final. I think it's called like. Hello Zep or something, but it's Welcome Zep or bum 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 bum. It almost is like Live or Let Die, but
sure,
it's great.
Yeah. She slams the door, and that's it. With this movie, I was thinking the same thing. We were talking to our friend Michael about this last night. Like, this is a series that gets into the other versions of the villain way quicker than any other franchise, which I think is. I'm just going to choose to think that that's fun because that's their whole shtick from here on out. And I'm just going to roll with that. This isn't I guess if you want to get technical, Friday the 13th did it from part 1 to part 2.
But you're also dealing with a much different thing. You're dealing with just this undead homunculus force of nature thing that's just quietly killing, this like spirit of vengeance. Whereas this is like, no, this is clearly built around me and this ethos that I have, and this I'm a personality villain.
Yeah.
So you can't. It seems strange to just swap him out so quickly, but they do have this ticking time clock of him dying. That's part of this whole thing.
And at least he got to like act his pants off in this and get a little bit more of a spotlight before they completely chuck him. So at least he got to do like a little bit more. But for all I know, he's in part 3. I don't remember at all.
Yeah, I mean, this is because this is like a few months after the first one, I think. Like,
yes.
Well, it's a little while because I mean, it's enough for those bodies to mummify, decompose a bit,
and not be found.
It's interesting because So I have this problem with Jigsaw's whole justification, but in the larger sense, like we talked in the last one about this kind of being a reflection of sort of America's turn to more like pessimism after 9/11 and stuff like that. And so while you can look at this and just be like, well, this is very much like, is this sort of more conservative bent about like, well, you are Tobin Bell is Jigsaw is like, well, you are failing society and failing yourself in these ways. And the only way to save you from yourself is through this violent means and this violent sort of like personal attack thing rather than being like, the world around you or anything to do with that. No, it's just your own personal failings and sort of this very right-wing conservative sort of thing.
Personal responsibility.
Yeah, but at the same time, it undercuts that because you have Amanda who went through his shit and then was like, yeah, I'm not any better. And so like, no, you need to do it again. You totally need to do it again. It's the process cannot fail. It can only be failed. Yeah. And so you're going to go through it again. And this time, this time it's working. And then as a result, and this is just based on the tiny little bit at the end, it doesn't seem like she has a trap or anything to try to make him, make Detective Matthews better. It just seems like she's operating purely out of vengeance. And so this message that you're sending forth about, I'll save you, I'll do this, is just her going like, no, I'm just going to kill this guy. I'm going to torture and kill this guy. So you've not able to promulgate your very ideas. So there's a failing there. And he's punishing in both cases. In this and the last movie, there was problems like familial problems with a troubled dad. In this case, Detective Matthews. In the last one, it was the doctor. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, well, he's kind of cheating on his family or all that. And so he's sort of punished. That's a huge part of the punishment. But then Shawnee Smith refers to him as dad. And that's clearly not working out well. You tried to kill her twice. So it's this. It's not as cut and dried as all that. And I do think that's interesting, even though like Big Boss Man and Tobin Bell have said that, Jigsaw is trying to teach these lessons. Mm-hmm. And they kind of have presented it in different interviews in a way that like what he's doing is actually like somewhat right, rather than being like, it's right to him. He thinks he's doing the right thing, but it also doesn't necessarily work out the way he wants it to. Mm-hmm. And it's a very sort of like religious thing too, where it's like, well, in order to appreciate life, you have to do all these specific things, follow the rules. Otherwise, you're not appreciating life in the right way, and I will destroy you. Right. So it's almost like Job in the Bible, where it's like it's God's just like here's a bunch of random chaos I'm going to throw at you because fuck you. That's why.
Exactly.
But you better still love me.
Mm-hmm. It's a test of faith.
Yeah, and I'd like to spend a little bit more time with this guy. I didn't love the movie overall because I do think, as I sort of alluded to, that there's just too many fucking characters. There's not really any kind of like arcs to anything. It's just people doing stuff and then stopping. But you go to a Saw movie to see the traps.
Yep.
A lot of the traps I enjoyed. Did you have a particular favorite trap?
Favorite trap? I mean, I'm going to have to go with the needle pit in the sense that I hated it. Mm-hmm. And I will think of it when I think of Saw too, so... Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be my favorite one. What about you?
It's good. It's simple. The needle pit is good. It's like it's up there. It's probably going to go with the needle pit. Yeah, I like the door gun just because it's dumb.
That was funny.
The Venus flytrap because it is just like, okay, you want to see a saw trap? Here's a saw trap. But the needle pit is just a hole with needles in it.
Yes, that's it.
But like, hey, it worked. It worked for me. It's simple, effective. Love it.
I also it feeds into. I might have mentioned this before, but like I have a genuine anxiety about when someone opens a hot oven door because it's not so much that I'm afraid to touch whatever's in the oven, but I'm afraid that I'll fall onto the oven door and not be able to get up without putting my hands down to like promote myself off. So I kept thinking about that in terms of being in the needle pit. Like she can't like roll around everywhere she goes is, hot lava,
is more needles,
whatever. Yeah. So peeking the mind of my anxiousness in the kitchen sometimes, even though I love to cook. But but yeah, it was the needle pit by a mile for me, really. Yeah. And
it's like the kitchen thing in Final Destination. Like it's relatable, so it's more understandable.
You go. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, before we talk about Tobin Bell, let's honor our dead. I believe there were 8 or 9-ish. We'll see here in a moment. Michael Marks, played by Noam Jenkins. Head smashed in Venus flytrap helmet. Gus Colliard, played by Tony Napo. Shot in the face. Obie Tate, played by Timothy Bird. Incinerated in oven. Jonas Singer, played by Glenn Plummer, hit in the back of the head with baseball bat with nails. Laura Hunter, played by Beverly Mitchell, succumbed to nerve agent poison. Addison Corduroy, played by Emmanuel Valgier, hands caught in razor box, bled out. Xavier Chavez, played by Frankie G, throat slit with saw. Yeah, to me, the highlight, as we talked about before, was just watching Tobin Bell act, because I just felt like he finally got to do something. And I don't want to repeat what we said earlier necessarily, but I would really like to see. I hope he's not out of the series. I know that he's a fan favorite, and I think he does come back at some point, just because I remember seeing headlines about that or something. But like, yeah, I would like to watch more of this guy. He can pontificate at me for a while, even if I want to like parse through his logic on my own. As
Donnie Wahlberg points out when they're starting to have the conversation, he's like, "Oh, I've heard all this bullshit before," and it's like, No, you haven't. This guy's a Batman villain.
Yeah.
Like you haven't, like, how many serial killers have you caught that are this guy?
That are this bad too.
Yeah, and that's kind of a terrifying thought, actually. But I like his sleepy performance. I mean, I know I don't know if that's what he's going for, but it is this very like relaxed, like I'm fully in control and I'm not worried about it. Like, and I don't need to lord it over you. It's just a fact. It's like I'm not going to lord over you that the sky is blue. It's just the way it is. So
yeah,
I'm just going to talk to you, and I'm going to hope that you come to my way of thinking and will listen to what I say. But I'm not going to really push it.
Lose sleep over this. Yeah.
But I like it. It's creepy in that way. It's just, you don't bother me in this. Like you all have me. I guess they were supposed to be initially when the SWAT team arrives to get him. He's like eating a bowl of Cheerios. They didn't use that bit. He's just sitting there. I think you can see a bowl there.
I did see
that
a
was
bowl.
a little too nonchalant for them. Yeah.
Yes, because I did see the bowl earlier.
Yeah, but there's still a menace to that nonchalance. There's an underlying menace there that I like, but it's very tamped down.
Completely.
So they really lucked out in wanting to continue this series that Tobin Bell is as strong as he is.
Well, I think that's going to do it for Saw 2. We'll be back in a week or two with Saw 3. Keep the traps going, keep the torture going.
And this one like made a bunch of money too, right? Like, I mean, they did for quite a while.
147 million. So that is a no-brainer to get another one into theaters within a year. If you're Lionsgate.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where it's going to go next, because it's I mean, obviously we're going to get more of the same, but just as you are expanding this outward and making it even more complicated, how are we going to manage that? Because it's already pretty convoluted as it is.
Yes.
Because even just thinking about the logistics of getting all these people in the house, I'm tired just thinking about it. And I'm not as sick as Tobin Bell.
Exactly.
So way to go, man. Way to,
he works for it.
He'd have a TikTok now, like Jigsaw grind set. Like if you aren't kidnapping 12 people by 2 p.m., you're not moving like me.
Yeah. Rise and grind.
We're not even in the same conversation. Yeah. Rise and grind. In fact, that's my trap, is the rise and grind.
The rise and grind. Your problem was that you spent too much time away from your family grinding.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to teach you to love them again.
You're not making correct money moves.
Right.
This is just one of those weird Instagram accounts where it's like pictures of the Joker with like motivational messages underneath.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you can't trust anyone except your best friend. And it's like the Joker hanging out with the Jared Leto Joker. And yeah, I don't know. Or just like, there's just a whole bunch of them. They're real bad.
I think we should start an Instagram account for a motivational jigsaw.
Jigsaw?
Pictures
that'd be
and
good.
quotes. Yeah.
Jigsaw grind set.
Is there anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
As always, you can find me, if you want to hear me talk about other different not horror movies, you can find me at John and Alex Hate Stuff. It's John with an H, Alex with 2 X's. You can find that wherever you get podcasts.
And if you like original short spooky stories, check out Please Leave. It's another podcast I do with my business partner, Courtney Eck. Short horror fiction. Check it out. Please Leave podcast. And we'll see you next time. This has been a Two Penguins Media production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at This May Hurt a Bit Pod and on Twitter at Hurt a Bit. Email us at thismayhurtabit@gmail.com. And if you are so inclined, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.